I want to bring in now White House Senior Trade Counselor Peter Navarro. And Peter, we know about how badly Powell's been behind with respect to the curve. I want to ask you about something that you wrote that caught my eye. Powell's audition for worst Fed chair began shortly after his February 2018 appointment, promising President Trump in the Oval Office a supportive posture to support his nomination. I didn't even know, can the Fed do that? I mean, someone's saying, I want to be in charge of the Fed. Can they say to the president, hey, I'm going to support your agenda? Because obviously he did not.
Look, dirty little secret here in the swamp. Everybody's a partisan animal, and Fed chairmen are partisan animals. And I remember well when Powell was angling for the job, he had a fan in Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary at the time. He comes into the Oval and he says all the right things to the boss about how he supports the policies, this, that, and the other thing. He gets the job and immediately turns coat. It was like, what are you doing? And the important thing here, Charles, and you and I understand this really well, is that Trumpnomics has the ability to grow the American economy significantly faster than Obamanomics or Bidenomics without causing inflation. And so in 2018, the first Powell major blunder, we're cruising along and Powell gets in his head, well, we're going to get inflation. We're doing too well. And it was too early, Powell, first major blunder. And then, look, it was criminal. And this gets to the politics of it again. When he wanted to get reappointed by Biden, right, what did he do? He held back on interest rates even as the inflation started to build. And it wasn't until it was out of control and you couldn't put the Biden inflation back in the bottle that he starts raising rates. But Charles, the worst thing he did when Biden and the Congress were doing that ill-named Inflation Adjustment Act, Reduction Act, all that, he kept his mouth shut. Contrast him and what I do in the Hill op-ed is like William McChesney Martin, right? When Johnson was prosecuting the Vietnam War, didn't want to exchange guns for butter, what did Martin do? He took away the punch bowl. What did Volcker do, the other great chairman at the Fed, I think, in modern history? Right. Powell is just the opposite of that. Now, you and I agree he's done two major blunders. The only thing is what he's doing now a third major blunder, and clearly it is. The data says that we should be at least 50 basis points lower right now, and the cost of that. Let me just do the cost for you. That's about a quarter to a half point of GDP growth that we lose. That's about 500,000 to 750,000 jobs we don't create. That's about $150 billion added over 10 years to the national debt, because 20 to 30% of that debt will be financed by short-term rates. It's over $1,000 a year to people who have a mortgage on their home. And it's in the revolving credit card debt, where we got $1 trillion out there. Collectively, it's like $5 billion that Jay Powell has. This man is blundering his way and hurting Americans to the tune of billions. And that's why I nominated him for the worst Fed chair in history, and I think he's earned that. And
Peter, I think you talked about this. You wrote about this. I thought this was interesting. His silent permissiveness, right? Which I found to be an interesting choice of words, because some say this is a form of narcissistic behavior in of itself. You talk about how much this has cost the American public. This morning, the NFIB, they come out with their optimism survey, and I want to show the public this, because this is to your point. That blue line is inflation. Inflation worries among small businesses has plunged. I mean, it's absolutely plunged. Small businesses aren't concerned with inflation. Wall Street's not concerned with inflation anymore. What's going through Powell's head that all of a sudden, by the way, he was data dependent. The data said no inflation. And then he always says that he doesn't want the public to become afraid or think that prices are going higher. Well, if you say they're going higher and you're the chair of the Fed, that hurts everything, doesn't it?
And let's make the point which you're making here. When you're fighting inflation, the biggest fight after it gets out of control is not the inflation itself, it's the inflationary expectations among workers and among businesses. And so when you see this kind of thing where inflationary expectations are clearly falling, we're winning the war on inflation. So when you ask me what's going through Powell's head, the other point I make in the Hill op-ed piece, Charles, is that anomalously, Powell's a lawyer. He's not an economist. Every good Fed chair we've ever had has been an economist.
Let me jump in 1 second, Peter, because I was actually kind of excited that we had someone who wasn't an economist that actually had real-world experience, but now he's playing like what he's doing now is really off the chain. But I've only got a minute to go, and here's what I want to really get. So Kevin Walsh was on with Larry Kudlow yesterday. He said the Fed needs regime change, that there's a lot of dead wood there. My question, though, is why not take this opportunity to remake the Fed, to make it into an agency that works for Main Street and no longer Wall Street, no longer the creature from Jekyll Island?
That one's way out of my lane, Charles. But what I can say here is that the concept of an independent Fed is a good one, but the problem is we've got a partisan Fed with Jay Powell. And what I'm calling for on July 29 and 30, if Powell can't get religion on Trumpnomics, it's the Board of Governors to rein him in. I don't know why. I mean, you got some intelligent people on that board. Why are they letting Jay Powell lead him around by the nose? The other lawyer that was on the Fed chair was also a disaster. I don't even remember. G. William Miller. He lasted only 500 days in the middle of the Carter stagflation. And who was he replaced by? Paul Volcker, who saved the day.
So real quick, anything you can tell us about trade, Peter? Some of these, what's happening on the trade side?
I can tell you about, the letters that went out, coupled with a couple of deals which are pending with like Vietnam, we actually get good coverage on almost 90% of the trade deficit that we have with the world, because that trade deficit's only with about 15 countries settled. All the other countries we can do better with and reduce and improve our trade situation. But we're in a good place now, and we're collecting billions upon billions of dollars. They're going to help pay for the big, beautiful tax cut, which, by the way, we can do maybe another segment sometime, is actually going to reduce the debt by several trillion rather than increase it. So what I can tell you about the Trump's trade policies, it's going very well for the American people.
Peter, thank you so much, my friend. We've got a couple more segments we've got to follow up with. Appreciate you.
All right, my friend. Anytime, you know.